Chapter 8, the generations of Noah, Genesis chapter 10. This chapter deals with the enumeration of the generations of the mythical descendants of the fabulous and figurative Irish name characters of the sons Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Before interpreting these cryptic name words, I shall digress a little to discuss Irish as the language of the Bible. In copying and translating the scriptures from the original Gaelic, or a dialect of it known as Hebrew, and in adapting it to the popular use of English readers, while retaining the Irish name words, the revisers displayed an astuteness and cunning worthy of a better cause, evidenced throughout all the years since by the ignorance and credulity of an unsuspecting posterity, even up to this day. This ignorance embraces not only the laity of the Christian world, but the majority of the clergy as well. The policy of secrecy and silence has had its effect, and the result is today a generation of people who knew nothing of the truth regarding the origin of the Bible or the meaning of its character names, but who are firm believers in the fictitious story given out by the churchmen that the Old Testament came to us from the so-called Jewish people of a country in Asia now known as Syria, and that the New Testament came to us from the same country and was written by the associates and disciples of Jesus. With the evidence of these pages as to the origin of our Bible, it does indeed seem strange that it did not occur to some scholar or investigator of an original trend of thought to take note of a bit of evidence appertaining to the Bible, which was always at hand and which in itself gave a clue to its origin, and I believe was secretly meant for the knowing ones. It is to be noted that the first copyright of the Bible was obtained in Ireland, and copyright implies authorship and place of origin. But this copyright event is mixed with a fictitious and absurd tale as to how the first Psalms were brought to Ireland. The account as given out by churchmen as to the date at which the copyright was obtained is absolutely nonsensical, as we can be certain that the Bible is the oldest literature extant in the known world. It must have existed in Ireland for a period of at least 60,000 years as the repository of the esoteric and sacred doctrine of the great Magian cult to which we owe its origin. The date of the advent of the Psalms into Ireland, as stated by the churchmen, is given as 561 AD. This date is, of course, for the purpose of bringing the event well within the time which the Roman churchmen claim as that of the establishing of their church in Ireland by Patricius. This claim we know to be false, as the Roman church did not gain a foothold in Ireland until their missionaries, the Anglo-Norman army, came as invaders at the behest of the Roman Pope to suppress the Irish Church of Asia and to establish the Roman Church in its stead. This armed invasion occurred in or about 1169 AD. Before this time, the Roman Church had not been in Ireland. The country had always been ruled by the Irish Pope Kings, and Ireland, from time immemorial, was the seat of Earth's supreme pontiff, who held spiritual rulership throughout the entire ancient world wherever organized religion had been established. The claims of Rome regarding her advent into Ireland are false, and as is also the story of bringing of the psalter to Ireland. Eire has the hone of music and poetry, and the Psalms bear the impress, even in their modern form, of their unmistakable Irish origin, and they still give evidence of containing ideals and idioms of the sun worship. The sun is always exalted, and rightly so, as the Lord of the heavens, and he is praised with psalter and harp, Psalm CV 111, as of old in Eire, the birthplace and homeland of Christianity. The story of the psalter is that Finian of Moville, Ireland, went to Rome and brought back with him a copy of the Psalms, said to have been the first copy brought into Ireland. Columcille, who was visiting Finian, sat up several nights unknown to his host and made a copy of the Psalms. After Columcille had completed his copy, Finian found out about it and demanded it of Pulumsil, who refused to give it up. The dispute over the copy was referred to King Diarmuid II at Tara, who decided that the copy belonged to Finian on the ground that to every cow belongs her calf, and to every book its son book. Thus, as the story goes, came into being the law of copyright. This copy of the Psalms is said to have been very likely a translation of the Vulgate of St. Jerome, and the first time that the Bible made its appearance in Ireland. This story, manifestly invented by the church scribes, whose purpose has been to suppress and misinterpret Ireland's true history, has come down to us since its issuance without question, but it cannot stand the test of the light which we have today on this matter. The inventors of the story took it for granted that by suppressing the Irish language and its consequent disuse as a literary or cultural medium, no one would ever after question how it happened that a Latin Bible, with its idioms naturally native to that tongue, should have lost them after its introduction into Ireland. The loss of the Latin idioms should be seen especially remarkable, since Latin had been made the special and ritualistic language of the Roman Church, and had the prestige and power of that institution to support and preserve it. The churchmen may say, as them make claim, that the Latin Bible was copied from the Greek in translation. If so, then the original idiomatic names should be Greek, but they are not. And if they should say that the first copy of the Bible was Hebrew, the question is settled, for Hebrew is an improvised and secret dialect of the Irish language. Moreover, since Rome had for centuries made war on Ireland in an effort to conquer and acquire the Irish Church and its papacy, it is fitting to question why, when she had finally accomplished this end, she allowed Irish Gaelic, the language of her enemies, to supersede and supplant her Latin tongue, or even Greek, and become the sacred language of the character names in our Bible. This question is sufficiently answered by the abundance and irrefutable nature of the evidence presented in these pages, proving as it does the absurdity of the churchman's claim and showing the character names which give their unimpeachable testimony to prove their nativity and identity in connection with the Christian sun worship of ancient Ireland. There is no certainty whatever as to the identity of Jerome, to whom the churchmen ascribe the translation of the New Testament from the Greek tongue into Latin. He is but a type, a generic character, like our unknown soldier. Rome has sainted him, but that does not identify him. She has sainted figures and characters that never existed. She has made a saint of the mythical figure Agnes, a lamb, the Lamb of God who taketh away the sins of the world. This is an ancient ideal of the sun worship, visualizing the sun as Ares, the ram, and his son as a lamb. As Ocean, a fawn or lamb, is the son of Theon, the personified sun god. She has sainted also the fictitious Veronica, the woman who handed Jesus a towel to wipe the sweat from his brow when he was bearing the cross. This is taken from the Irish version of the myth of Asia. The root of the name word Veronica is from the word mer, pronounced mar, meaning a hand. When this word is inflected or compounded, as in this case, it becomes bar, a finger. Hence, in the myth, Veronica handed him a towel. She is merely a character in the mythical composition. The Irish sun god Ian, from Ain, a ring or annual circle of the solar year, has become the Roman god Janus, the year, who was given the surname of Bar Jonas, and whose bronze image is set up under the cupola in the Church of St. Peter in Rome, and is doing duty as the figure of St. Peter with keys in his hand. His bronze toes are nearly worn away by the oscillation of the worshippers. Authorities differ as to the birthplace of Jerome, one declaring it to be in Gaul, another giving Dalmatia as the place. The real truth regarding him is that he was a native of Eire, as his name suggests. His name is given as Eusebius Sophronicus Hieronymus. This is, we believe, a generic name formulated to identify him as an Irishman, as the name Hieronymus refers to Ire of the Bible. The New Testament is but a complement along the same lines of the Old Testament, with Irish character personalities associated with Jesus. Jerome, being an Irishman, retained those idiomatic Irish names for God and character names, such as we find in the New as well as the Old Testament. The name Jerome might be applied to any one of hundreds of Irish monks and schoolmen on the continent of Europe in the latter part of the 6th century AD, when the Latin translation is said to have been made. It is quite plain that the translation was made from the Irish to the Latin, and not from the Latin or Greek to the Irish. The Bible, speaking for itself, through the exposition and interpretation given in these pages, is the best proof that Irish Gaelic is its mother language, and the Bible was in the Gaelic tongue in Ireland and Scotland as late as the beginning of the 16th century AD. It is evident that this fact had its influence on Erasmus. Early in that century, there was a raging controversy in England as to the propriety of having the Bible translated into English and given to the people. Erasmus, then a professor at Queen's College, Cambridge, sides with those who favoured the translation in these words, quote, "I wish that even the weakest woman might read the Gospels and the epistles of St. Paul. I wish that they were translated into all languages, so as to be read and understood not only by Scots and Irishmen, but even by Saracens and Turks. But the first step to their being read is to make them intelligible to the reader." End quote. Erasmus, being an erudite man, knew that the Scots and Irish had the Bible in their own language, and he wished to all others to have the same privilege, including the Saracens and Turks. The words attributed to Erasmus may be false and invented by obscurants to convey an impression contrary to the inference I have drawn. If such was the case, their purpose is forever set aside by the character of the evidence set forth for the first time in this book. So instead of finding Greek or Latin names predominating in the Bible, we find Irish names as they were in the original, except for some changes and alterations as shown, made by the revisers for deceptive purpose. We find that these idiomatic Irish names have persisted and survived through all the several translations of the Bible into all the leading cultural languages of the world. If Rome had a Latin translation of the New Testament with Irish or so-called Hebrew name, she obtained it from the priests or monks of the Irish Church of Iesucrist. Ancient Ireland gave us the Bible, as this country had developed and enjoyed a high spiritual and literary culture and civilization from time immemorial. It was the seat of the oldest civilization on earth, and from there the civilization spread throughout the world through the missionaries of the ancient Irish Church and their sea voyages, the so-called Phoenicians and Aryans of history. Rome itself was a colony of Ireland in the beginning, and from Ireland she received whatever culture she had, but Rome never attained great eminence in letters. Her great and distinguished historical personages are invented characters, like those of Greece, formulated by the priests for the adornment of Roman history and for the admiration of a credulous posterity. Some of these characters will of necessity be explained in the elucidation of the myth of Iesu, Jesus, to be taken up in another work. Until now, a positive and genuine knowledge of the background and ancestry of the Bible has never been disclosed, though there has been widely divergent and erroneous opinion and abundance given out regarding it. This only served to make obscure and uncertain the authorship of the ancient scriptures. It has been a prolific subject of controversy among scholars and investigators, whose conclusions became more and more confused and unreliable the more they wrote and disputed, so far as the individual and earnest seeker after truth is concerned. The fundamental reason for all this confusion and failure was that the churchmen were pursuing a false lead, which took them to the east to investigate spurious legends and traditions invented by the Roman priests in the countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea, where they were foredoomed to certain failure. The truth lay in the opposite direction, in the west, towards Aire, the original home of ancient learning and spiritual culture. We shall now proceed with the interpretation of the 10th chapter of Genesis, beginning with the second verse, quote, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, and Magog, and Madai, and Yavan, and Tubal, and Meshesh, and Tiras, end quote. These are all Irish name words and have a cryptic spiritual meaning. The first son of Japheth is Gomer, from the root word gom, meaning kindred, implying that he is just like his father Japheth, who, it will be remembered, was a godlike and spiritual character or ego man. The second son is Magog. This name word is a variation of the perfect form Makog, from Mak, son, and Og, a virgin, which implies that he is a spiritual man and has attained that state by living a life of virgin purity as a celibate. Celibacy was the ideal of the ancient Magian cult of Aire and considered to be the requisite state through which the spiritual or solar body might be perfected. This ideal permeates the entire scriptures as the path, the way to the spiritual goal, union with the Creator as the perfect solar body. The third son is Madai. The root of this name word is mad, a hand, which signifies that he is an artisan, an artist, an architect, a builder, engaged in the spiritual work of erecting and perfecting his spiritual body. The fourth son is Yavan. The son's name is from the same root word as his father's, Aya, fire, the spirit, so he, like his father, is a spiritual aspirant. The fifth son of Japheth is Tubal. The meaning of this name character has been given at length in the explanation of the name characters of the children of Adam and Eve and the descendants of Canaan, and is the same as the Tubal, which constitutes the first part of the name Tubal-Cain, meaning a lord, and thereby implying a spiritual man. The sixth son is Meshesh. This character name is composed of two words. Meseh, the dot over the final I makes it IH, making the name Meseh, meaning spirits, and Sai, Seth, from original Sig, meaning a fairy, spiritual, or the other world, belonging to spirits. So Meshesh is also an advanced spiritual character. The seventh son of Japhet is Tiras. This son's name is also a compound of two words, T. The first syllable has many meanings, but we will give here only those to which appertain to its character as a spiritual son of Japhet, namely burning, zeal, judgment, design, intention. The second syllable ras is from rus, meaning a way, a road. Thus we have Tiras, a godlike character. Timur is an ancient Irish name for the supreme being. Therefore, Tiras is an ideal character of the ancient Irish celibate priesthood of the Christian sun worship and harmonizes perfectly with his brethren with the spiritual aspirations of his father Japhet. These seven sons in this mythical genealogy are meant to imply and represent the number of strict, pure, abstemious earth lives or incarnations that even such a spiritual character as Japhet must live in order to perfect his spiritual body. These 7 lives were, and still are, held to be necessary even after the aspirant has advanced far enough in spiritual growth and development to be said to have entered on the way, path, or the road to perfection. Tiras is the culmination of Japhet's 7 final earth lives, of burning zeal with judgment, design, and intent to achieve the victory over his earthly nature and accomplish the building of his spiritual body. Genesis 10:3 reads, quote, "And the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah," end quote. These are all idiomatic Irish names harmonizing perfectly with the ideals of the ancient ascetic priesthood of the sun god Iesakliost, and their names indicate their character. The first son of Gomer is Ashkenaz. This name is composed of two words, as meaning a shoe, and a sandal, also astar meaning a journey, and asdar meaning a journey, journeying, traveling. And Kenaz, a disguised or corrupt form of the Irish word kenaz, pronounced kenaz, meaning growth, increase. Thus we have the Irish name character Ashkenaz telling us what he is, a travelling and wayfaring man journeying on the road, which will bring him growth and further increase in spiritual development. The second son is named Riphath. He is also a wayfaring man, as his name discloses. The name is made up of two syllables, each of which is a word in itself. The first syllable, ri, means along with, to accompany on a journey, to, on, before. Also ria, meaning running, speed. And rith, pronounced ri, the th being silent, meaning a flight or race. The second syllable, path, is a distorted form of the Irish word faith, meaning departure, going, and faid, a prophet or holy man. Hence we have Riphath, the travelling and wayfaring man, well advanced in holiness and in possession of prophetic power, which in this character name indicates an advanced state of spirituality. The third son, Togarmah, also derives his name from his qualities. The first part of his name, Togar, means desire, will, pleasure. And the second part, Ma, from the Irish word math, the T is silent and pronounced ma, means a hand, fruit, good. Therefore, Togarmah represents a good artisan and spiritual handicraftsman whose desire and pleasure it is to follow and pursue the good spiritual life and become perfect. In Genesis 10:4, the text reads, quote, "And the sons of Jovan, Elishash, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim," end quote. The name of this first son of Jovan is a good example of the manner in which the ancient Irish Magian cult of the sun worship, followers and disciples of Iesakliost, the god of the sun, concealed their ideals. The name consists of two parts, beginning with the word El, a so-called Hebrew word, but easily traced back to the original Irish Ol, meaning mighty, great, powerful. The attributes which we recognize as belonging to deity, hence the meaning of God given to El, the disguised Hebrew form of the Irish Ol. The second part of the word Elisha is an altered form of the Irish word sub, Irish form sub, pronounced shah, meaning an airy form, implying a spirit, and it is also a name for the sun. The name character Elishish is like Enos, and he was carried to heaven alive because he became godlike by living the requisite number of perfect lives to develop his spiritual body, which is luminous like the sun. Hence his secret name of God's Son, implying that he had come like unto the image and likeness of his Creator, that he had finished his earthly task and trials and completed the building of his shining spiritual solar body. Tarshish, the second son of Jovan, is a name word composed of two syllables which show that he is, like his father and brothers, a spiritual character. Tar, the first syllable of this character name, is from the Irish word tana, meaning a cross, a crossroad, or way. The second syllable is from the word soisle, pronounced shishla, meaning brightness, and soislen, meaning shining. Hence, Tarshish is the wayfaring spiritual wanderer and traveller who has journeyed on his way and developed his bright and shining solar body. The third son is Kittim, This character name is also composed of 2 syllables. The first is from the Irish word coit, pronounced keet, meaning the left hand. The second syllable is from team, meaning expert. This Irish character name informs us that he is an artisan, a joiner, an artist, an expert and skillful handicraftsman engaged in the building of his perfect spiritual body. The fourth son of Javan is Dodanim. This is a compound of 3 syllables. The first do is a distorted form of the Irish word dia, meaning a man, a day, and God. The second syllable dan means a trade, work, art, science. Im, the third syllable, is the personal ending to complete the name. This character name Dodanim informs us that he is an ideal and godlike artificer, an artist, a scientific and skillful architect, a devotee or follower of the day or sun, employed in the building of his luminous solar body. In Genesis 10:5 we read, quote, "By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families and their nations." End quote. As a part of the mythic story, this is merely a summary statement to embellish the narrative and give it matter-of-fact form and the appearance of being a true tale to all except the chosen few. To the latter, to those with a deeper understanding, it implies that those spiritual characters have come unto their own possessions, which are spiritual and likened unto earthly lands and dominions only in a figurative sense. Genesis 10:6 reads, quote, "And the Irish sons of Ham, Cush, Mizraim, and Phut, and Canaan," end quote. We find in this verse an instance of one of the most flagrant interpolations to be found in the Bible. I have already called attention to it in a previous chapter. In the Irish original, the characters sometimes seem very much alike, and the root words are often inflected and turned in every possible way to find a new form of the name word in which to embody an idea, but never do they depart from the Gaelic mother tongue. But in this verse, the revisers have duplicated the Irish word cos, which they varied as cush, and have injected into the text an English translation of the word as foot. The revisers may have in fashion thought that Ham should have 2 feet to travel on, and therefore added 1 to his pedal equipment. Cush, the first son of Ham, is an Irish word, proper form cos, and means a foot, signifying in the myth that he is a wayfaring man or traveller on the path seeking spiritual advancement. The second son is Mizraim. This name is composed of 2 word syllables. The first one is from misisi, meaning spirits. The second syllable is from raim, meaning a way, a progress, a champion. Therefore we find that the second son of Ham is a progressive wayfaring man, a champion who is battling to overcome his lower sensual nature and who will eventually succeed in perfecting his spiritual body. From what we have already seen, it would be too much to expect that the revisers had been honest in their presentation of these Irish character names to us. It was not their purpose or intention to be so, as at the date in which the translations were made, 1608 to 1611 AD, the name words would have been easily recognised and understood, as there were still many Gaelic scholars in Ireland and Scotland. So for purposes of secrecy and for the confusion of the common people, they have made many alterations and variations. In the spelling of these names, they have, in nearly every instance, substituted the English letter Z for the Gaelic letter S, as in the names Zela and Mizraim. The third son of Ham, Foot, is a character inserted in the text by the revisers, as has been explained above. The fourth son of Ham is Canaan, the name character of 3 word syllables. The first ka means a house, implying the body or lower nature. The second na means the soul. The terminative syllable an is the diminutive and gives the word the force of little kana. Hence, Canaan signifies a man or character of the lower nature, that is one possessing the body and soul nature but not the spiritual. Han is triune in nature, being composed of a body, soul, spirit. This character is representative of mankind as a whole, for the average man is moved and actuated by his bodily and soul nature and has not as yet developed as his spiritual nature. Hence we have Canaan, the man of little soul, the character who is actuated by the lower aspects or tendencies of the soul nature and not the higher, which is spiritual. In the character triad of the sons of Noah, Ham represents the lower central nature in man, and in the triad of the sons of Ham, omitting the spurious and interpolated Phut, Canaan fills that role. That this is so will become apparent when the character names of his descendants are explained as we come to them.